This program was made possible by the Whitten Newman Foundation, Pros for Vets,
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Fighting for you.
Fighting for you.
Because you fought for us.
Because you fought for us.
the Toby Keith Foundation, and Fate, Fighting Addiction Through Education, and the Chesapeake Energy Corporation. For over 300 years, Americans have been asked to lay down their lives for their country. Men and women once fought for a nation that was simply an idea, a dream. It was a precious cost for that dream to become a reality, and it would be the lives of soldiers that would pay that sacrifice. They paid the price at Lexington. Young boys struggled for unity at Shiloh. They stormed beaches on distant shores to keep our shores free from tyranny. They embarked for the deserts and seas and jungles and mountains in the name of freedom, some never to return. Their names are carved in marble slabs across this country. Their memories prepared to stand the test of time. Behind every name is a story, a family, a friend. Every generation has been called to add their sons and daughters to that list of names. These are the stories of the next generation who answered their nation's call. These are Oklahoma's fallen.
He was just a boy that liked to be out and do things. He played every sport he could play. He loved being at the lake and pretty much grew up there every summer.
He was a clown all the time, always joking and just cutting up. We used to sit up in his room and actually prank call people at like midnight. Our parents didn't know about that. Oh, he was a ham. He was just, full of life, full of personality, just one of those kids that everybody, loved to be around. And he was a great, great kid. We fought a lot growing up. We fought so much that my mom actually made us go to counseling. And I remember we had to give each other at least 2 compliments a day. But it would always be like, oh, your hair looks nice. Yeah, well, I like your shirt, But as we got older, that changed and, we became like really close friends. But yeah, growing up, we had this sibling rivalry going on for sure.
One memory, it wasn't much fun for him, but Jill drove up and she heard this whack. And the kids were playing t-ball in the backyard, and that whack was Chris's right left eye. Just laid it open. And he was so excited to go to the emergency room because he got a free pizza at Mazzio's. So he didn't care about the stitches or it didn't hurt, he just wanted that free pizza.
He just had a love for life. I just loved doing different things, swimming, skiing, just like a typical boy, it was all boy.
He's named after his father, David Timothy Wright II. His father goes by Tim. In school, of course, they always call you by your first name, and he answered here to David. And from 7th grade on, everyone called him David but us. But to us, he's Timmy. To family, he's Timmy.
As a kid, he was a rough and tumble boy.
Seems like he always had stitches. Something broke every summer.
Timmy was always very competitive, always wanted to be the best of the best. As he got older, he was always very athletic. Played baseball, played football, and one day they told him, you don't have to lift weights today if you want to try out for the track team. Coach Martin, he was the track coach, and he said, your son has a gift in the hurdles. He was offered a full ride scholarship to OU. He loved it. He loved to run. He's very fast.
Michael came into this world sound asleep, quiet as a church mouse. They had to wake him up. And once they did, he never shut up.
Got in trouble a lot for kind of correcting history teachers and things like that. Got sent to the principal's office once for calling his history teacher a hippie.
He was in art class, and his girlfriend, Nikki, at the time, was drawing something, and he kept poking her in the arm. And she looked at him and yelled, "Stop it, Pokey!" And it stuck. He was Pokey from, sophomore year on. He was Pokey.
I don't know, I never really called him by his Pokey name, He was always Michael to me, Michael, so. But the Pokey thing became, like I say, more people knew him by that than his real name.
I moved here in 2004, and as you tell, I'm not an Okie. I am now. I married an Okie, so I moved here in 2004, and I walk into my freshman English class. I'm going to teach the junior English. Michael Pokey Phillips. He's one of the first kids to make fun of the way I speak, which I really don't understand. But Michael was the ringleader behind having a chart on the board of Oklahoma words and Boston words. So if I said park, they ran over and spelt it phonetically. I can distinctly remember him being that person that just thought that was hysterical. But what I really enjoyed about that was that, like I said, I just moved here after 16 years teaching 3 miles outside of Boston, and he was one of the kids that accepted me, and that first class was his.
He was 2.5, and we had paper and pencil and Crayolas out on the table, and he was watching that, and he said, "Mama, draw me a shark." And so I did the figure 8 and put a fin on the back of it and pushed it back to him. He said, "No, draw a real shark." "Ryan, Mommy can't draw a shark. Here, you try." And he took his pencil and he drew a shark. By the time he was 2.5, he was always drawing. Ryan was very deep feeling. He had a lot of emotions, a lot of things that he dealt with and internalized, and he used his art as therapy. Right around the time that he would be allowed to enlist, we had 9/11. He said, "We've got to do something," and he said, "No, I've got to do something." He actually enlisted early and had to wait. He was a young man and he knew what he wanted, and we wanted to support that. Ryan always wanted to make a difference. He always wanted to do something bigger. So we always knew that he would probably go into the military. And then after the military, he talked about doing art.
Christopher always really had an interest in the Army from the time he was really young. He always wanted to dress camouflage. He had a recruiter that was talking to him in high school, and he called me and he told me he was going to join the military. Of course, as a mother, the first thing I said was, "No, you don't want to do that. What if there's ever a war?" And his remark to me was, "Oh, Mom, there's never going to be a war."
I was in the Air Force for 4 years. I said, that's really something you might think about, the Air Force. Give you something to do for 4 years. You can get your head on straight, see what you might want to do. Okay, He comes back, I signed up in the Army. I'm going to be in the infantry. He excelled in everything he did in the Army. He got picked in basic for the 3rd Infantry Old Guards in Washington, D.C. That's the ceremonial unit of the 3rd Infantry that does all the burials at Arlington.
They told us then that that was a mother's dream job for a soldier because they would never be deployed.
He was dated a gal from Maryland for years when he was in D.C. I said, Chris, you need to come home and get an Oklahoma girl, and he did.
My sister had called me one night, and she was like, hey, I want to go over. Chris is in town. I want to go over to Leah's house, which is his cousin. I want to go over there and see him. And I was like, okay, I didn't know him. I had no idea, so I was like, fine, let's go. We just talked all night and had fun, and we sat on the curb outside Leah's house and talked for 3 hours. He had to go back to D.C. the next day, so I didn't hear from him for a long time. Well, he came back to Oklahoma 2 months later and called me, and I was like, okay. He was like, hey, let's go on a date. So we went to Applebee's and hung out and all this, and we talked forever, and I had never really had that kind of connection with anybody. He lured me in with his humor and goofiness. He was so funny. He was the funniest guy I'd ever met. I mean, no matter what, you could be in the worst mood possible, and he would say something to make you laugh. And I think that was just, honestly, that was the best thing about him. He just, no matter what, and he could look at you, and you could, just by looking at you, he'd make you smile.
Interesting thing about 9/11 is he was a mile from the Pentagon, is where he was stationed. And for, I believe, 30 days, him and his company spent 12 hours a day in the Pentagon getting the bodies and stuff out. They didn't get to go back to their to the fort they were stationed at. They lived in tents on the ground of the Pentagon, and he called me every night, a lot of times in tears. You could just feel the emotion that he said, I can't stand any more dead bodies, and I don't want to smell jet fuel again. Got to him, he said, 12 hours, he said, you're picking up pieces of people and rib cages, and he said it's hard. But after 9/11, that was it. He just said, I'm going to go get him.
He knew when he re-enlisted that he would be sent to Iraq, and that's what he wanted to do. Because he had friends that were dying over there, and he called me, and he said, Mom, my friends are over there, and they're dying and fighting for their country, and he said, I want to go, and I want to be a part of that.
He just said, they're not going to do this to my country, and he was gone.
And at that point, we were still dating. It wasn't like we were engaged or anything like that. He was like, but I just volunteered to go. He felt like his job was to serve the country. And it wasn't just that it was his job. It was what he loved to do. He called me and he was like, I'm coming down to Oklahoma. And I was like, how? You don't have any leave. What's going on? He was like, well, I'm just going to come down and see you again before, we start planning all this deployment stuff. So he comes down and we're driving down the road and he's like, hey, Kelly, will you grab my bag? It's in the back of the seat. I was like, yeah. So I reach in there and I pull out this red bag, and it's a Hellsberg jewelry bag. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, will you marry me? And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, pull the car over. So I'm freaking out, I'm crying, and he's like, I know I want to be with you, and I just think we need to get married. And I was like, okay, but you're leaving for Iraq in 2 months. And he was like, so I think we should get married. And so we're like, okay, fine. Let's just get married. We got engaged in November, married in December, and he left in January to go to Iraq. So we didn't have very much time to spend together, but I mean, we knew we were in love. So we were just like, you know what? We're going to do it now. We're going to get it over with and
just be able to spend the rest of our lives.
For a DVD copy of this program, please go to www.prosforvets.org and find additional stories of our fallen, as well as information about how you can get involved with honoring our veterans. All proceeds will go to fight for those who fought for us. This program was made possible by the Whitten Newman Foundation, Pros for Vets,
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Pros for Vets.
Fighting for you.
Fighting for you.
Because you fought for us.
Because you fought for us.
The Toby Keith Foundation, and Fate, Fighting Addiction Through Education, and the Chesapeake Energy Corporation.